First of all, I want to say thank you. I think you've led those beautifully and with confidence. And thank you for being our service leader and the representative of our community. I have a question to you all in the beginning before I start speaking. What do you think is a better life choice? What do you think is a better person? Who do you think is a better person out of the following two? One is the one who is in touch with nature, the one who who regularly exercises, have skills and strengths to provide for family, being honest with yourself, and sometimes is a bit impulsive, but has trust in others, always speak your mind. Don't expect people to deceive you. Or perhaps a better person is the one who spends more time at home, connecting to your thoughts and spirituality, developing strategic thinking, and believing that sometimes it is okay to tell white lie because this person believes that it is better in the long term. Those who know the biblical story perhaps realized that I'm talking about Esau and Jacob, twin brothers born to Isaac and Rebekah from this story in the Torah. Torah tells us that they started to fight with each other. They had such different personalities even before they were born in Rebekah's womb, perhaps predicting their troubled relationship in the future. Esau was born first and therefore was supposed to become the link in the lineage of Jewish people for all future generations. So perhaps we are supposed to recite prayers not to say that Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, but to say Abraham, Esau, and Jacob. So that was the right way to do, according to the law of the country. Esau was skillful hunter, and in fact, he was his father's favorite. Jacob was, and I quote, a person of a plain person, dwelling in tents, and he was his mother's favorite. One day, Jacob forces his brother into selling him his birthright for a bowl of lentil stew. Years later, at Rebekah's advice, Jacob pretends to be Esau and tricks his father into giving him Esau's firstborn blessing. Who is right in this story? Who is a better person? Is it a good trait to be impulsive so that you sell your birthright, the important part of your heritage, for a bowl of stew, lentil stew? On the other hand, is it a good trait? Is it a good characteristic of our ancestor to lie and deceive others? Rabbi James Jacobson Myers notes a very significant detail in the biblical narrative. On the one hand, the privilege of the firstborn is accepted and widespread assumption in the Hebrew Bible. However, on the other hand, this privilege is repeatedly subverted. It is Isaac, the secondborn, not Ishmael, the first, who receives his father's inheritance, in a similar way that Jacob, in this week's Torah portion, receives the blessing and not Esau. Later in the Torah, it will be Judah and Joseph, rather than the firstborn Reuben and secondborn Simon, who will take over the leadership when Jacob dies. When Jacob becomes old and blesses Joseph's sons on his deathbed, he purposely put his right hand on Ephraim, the younger, indicating that his preference is the younger son, despite Joseph's objection. Almost all leaders of the Jewish people arise from unlikely places. Moses, the greatest prophet, God's messenger, was raised in Egyptian culture. He didn't know Judaism much and started his adult life with a murder of an Egyptian guard. Saul, the first king of Israel, is by his own admission from the smallest of the tribes of Israel, and his clan is the least of all the clans in the tribe. David, the great King David, a boy untrained in military combat, defeats the Philistine giant and the strongest champion, Goliath. The individual story of the Esau and Jacob is undoubtedly unfair. The medieval commentators Rashi and Ibn Ezra went to great length to show that Esau, not Jacob, was the deceiver and the one who tricked his father. But this is a simple reversal of the plain text. The straightforward reading of the text shows no such evidence. If you only read Torah, Jacob cannot be seen as innocent victim. It is only the bigger picture that helps us to understand the key message of this week's Torah portion. Everyone should be given a chance, regardless of their class, age, gender, financial position, network, or status. You can become the next leader. In the early 20th century, someone brought to Rabbi Kook. Rabbi Kook was the first Ashkenazi chief rabbi of pre-state Israel, the following dilemma. This person had given his children a good Jewish education. He had always kept the commandments at home. Now, however, the children had drifted far from Judaism, no longer kept the commandments, and didn't even identify as Jewish. What should these parents do? Did you love your children when they were religious? Rabbi Kook asked. Of course, replied the father. Well then, Rabbi Kook replied, now love them even more. We live in the world today where people assume bad intentions. Trust is often seen as weakness and disadvantage in the public discourse. Regardless of how small and insignificant you are in the beginning of your life journey, regardless of social pressures and life conditions, everybody must have a chance to succeed and change their path. Most leaders in our story are those who were not born strong and privileged. It is their hard work and their ability to change what made them great ancestors and models for us. Every voice matters. There are no insignificant characters. Every detail is important. It is the way how you choose to spend your life that should define your outcome, not the order or place of your birth. You can begin your life as honest and trustworthy person, but it is where you end it is what matters even more. Eve, according to the Jewish tradition, Bat Mitzvah is the day when you begin your journey towards adulthood. Ancient Jews believed that it is today when you begin to make your own choices in life. And as it was the case with Rabbi Kook and the parent who came to seek his advice, you may decide to use other texts and other traditions to navigate your life. Only you can make these choices. And you can sometimes make mistakes in life. But I think it is important to remember that you can always come back, regardless of the circumstances. I can only hope, we can only hope, that Jewish stories and Jewish principles will be somewhere in your mind when you need a guide to help you to choose your path in life. Shabbat Shalom and Mazal Tov.